For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Good evening. Welcome to today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller. Good evening, Josh.
Hello, Dan.
And we're back for a new year of brand new entrepreneur profiles.
Happy 2017.
Same to you.
If you believe in numerology, Dan, it's a fresh start year. 2 + 1 + 7 is 10 or 1 or 0. Whatever it is, it's the beginning of something. I don't believe in numerology, but from what I hear, it's a fresh start year.
Well, it's definitely going to be a different year. I mean, a lot is happening politically all around the world.
At least south of us.
Sure, a lot of trade questions, but there's some opportunity, right? I mean, there's opportunity in chaos for entrepreneurs sometimes.
There's no doubt there's opportunity. There's probably a lot more challenges. If you can master a few things, then I think you're going to really be on top of the game. If you can master your trade, if you can master your quality issues, if you can master your foreign exchange, I mean, nobody has a crystal ball, but actively manage it. If you can actively manage your talent, because that's not always easy, then you can certainly have a better year than maybe you would have otherwise had. But you got to stay on your game, and you got to be open to ideas, and you got to not be stale. You got to always think out of the box.
Speaking of having a good year, you know who had a great year in 2016? Quebec. All of Quebec, creating more jobs than anywhere in Canada. What's going on? This is such a pleasant surprise.
It was really good news to hear. I think it touches, certain aspects of the economy. I don't know if it's every sector that's up. There's no question on the IT front or, the Ubisofts, the artificial intelligence, the programming. I think we have a lot of talent in that respect. I do believe that the U.S. dollar definitely comes into play, so that the exporters, their business has been a little bit better this past year, certainly where the dollar is $1.33 or 75 cents or however way you want to look at it. There's no question that there is a drive for demand, and that demand will create jobs. So it was really good. I don't think necessarily that it's because of the Quebec government embracing the entrepreneurial and business culture. I don't think that's the case. Certainly as small businesses are going to be taxed a little bit more in 2017. If you're under 5 employees, you're no longer allowed small business rate. I mean, there's some unfortunate rules that are going to hit, or that have hit in the last budget, that is not going to be great, and we're taxed. However, good quality of life. It's an easy place to live. Standard of living is good. But I don't think it's due to the Quebec government. I think it's due to our society, the dollar, and I would say the people that want to come back and work, the people that love this new industry, the new economy, and they're really going all in.
It seems like there's certainly a lot of opportunities, especially in the knowledge economy here in Montreal. A lot of investment in AI, artificial intelligence, and Microsoft announcing recently that they're going to pour money into a Montreal-based firm that they bought called Maluba. They are a deep learning tech firm, and they're going to double the size of their office by 2019.
But that's part of the, when we're talking about jobs and job growth, I think, and we're going to, the reality is we're going to see this everywhere in the world. The new economy, there's a lot of people that say, if you ever look at the YouTube video called Shift Happens, just to pronounce it properly so nobody thinks otherwise. There's been a whole bunch of iterations and versions over the years, but in each one, they always come back and say the students or the kids, if I may, going to school today are preparing for jobs in 5 years that don't even exist today. And okay, it's not necessarily across the board. You're always going to have certain base jobs out there, but the technology is changing so rapidly. In 5 years from now, it's going to be radically different, and it's going to be a whole slew of new jobs. The question is, how many fall off the table after that? So Microsoft is seeing this artificial intelligence, which of course, with the 360, the virtual reality that became very popular last year and the last couple of years, this is just the next evolution in that technology and people immersing themselves in that part of the world.
Another newish Montreal startup that I have a lot of love for is Lufa Farms. They grow vegetables on rooftops here in Montreal and sell them like a subscription service to Montrealers. Fantastic.
I think there's a lot of social responsibility, and that's we saw a lot of that in 2016, 2015. I think that's definitely going to see where you're going to see a lot of action, a lot of companies in that social responsibility, and that reinvesting in our own, not fossil fuels, and getting to that, really in touch with the environment, really having that circle of life come back to it. And people are willing to pay for it, and people are willing to adjust their lifestyles, their desires, their wants, their needs a little bit in accordance, just so that life is a little bit better for the planet. And Lufa, and it's not for everybody. I get it. It's not for everybody. A lot of people have their conveniences. A lot of people still drive their big cars and gas and just go to whatever supermarket or restaurant and get what they want. But there are a lot of people out there that are really very self-conscious about the environment and health conscious, and really want that reuse, that circle of life energy that Lufa Farms is essentially promoting with their farms on roofs.
Quebec-based Simons is putting the finishing touches on their Calgary store. I guess kind of bucking the trend a little bit. Department stores haven't been going so well, but Simons is pretty optimistic about Calgary.
And I think it's great news to hear. It's a great, solid Quebec company that's been around for a long time. It's the Simons family, from Quebec City, been around a while. I think it's pretty adventurous for them to go, as you said. Not everybody's opening up retail, a big box retail stores. I mean, you look at the Bay, and you look at all these big stores. Sears, forget about Sears. They're in the doldrums. Nobody really likes to shop at Sears. Well, I shouldn't say that. Some people like to shop at Sears, but this is a brave new step. Now, I think in the Simons aspect, I think the takeaway for entrepreneurs is they want to try and do something a little different. Each store is a little bit different in their decor and how they do it and how they work. They don't pay commissions to sales reps. They're really trying to do something a little bit different. Opening in a Calgary market, that I'm not so sure about today. They've taken a really big hit with the oil and gas and the price per barrel that came down. Do I think it's going to come back? Yes. Do I think they're in for a good 1-2 year rough ride? Absolutely. So the question is, they're going to have to find the why in getting their customers into their store. And Simons, I think, has a little bit differentiation that they might be able to pull it off. But it's going to take some time.
Let's talk about hockey briefly. That new team, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, didn't quite do their due diligence. And this is important when you're creating a new brand.
Intellectual property, your name, this is huge. Anytime you're talking about it, Dan, with your company Provocateur, with us FL Fuller Landau, anytime you're trying to go out and find a name, you got to make sure that nobody else is using it. Now, the reality is, every time you pick a name, there is a legal search. At least here in Canada, I won't pretend to be a lawyer, but in Canada, actually everywhere, you have to do a legal search for your name. They chose to do their marketing and advertising and rollout before they actually got their legal right to use their name. Don't do this, people. The entrepreneurs, if you have a name, okay, if you don't have a name and you have a great product and you haven't attached a name to it, great. Go for it and try and roll it out. But if you know that there's this great catchy name out there, whatever it might be, go make sure that you can keep it. Go grab that name. The name is huge. Look at any big brand. The name is huge. Look at all the advertising on TV now. Let go. People are selling stuff on Let Go. It's easy. It's Let Go. But you can have that service, but have a really crappy name associated with it. Let Go is a great name, but I bet you they got the name first. They made sure the domains were there, which is I would always do first before everything else. Make sure you have your .com available, because if you don't, how are you really going to get people driven to your site, to your brand, to build that brand? So intellectual property is huge. Get that name sorted out right away.
Finally, I'll take any opportunity to talk about ice cream and a new high-fat, ethical ice cream brand.
This is a company that they don't harm their cows. Their cows milk themselves. They go over and, when they feel like getting milked, that sounds kind of weird. I don't feel like getting milked right now. If my cow feels like getting milked, but if that cow feels like getting milked and fed, they do it on their own time.
Wow.
This is not forced milking or anything like that. And then they're like, well, once that, then we know where the milk is coming from. So that's a big aspect. But then they say there's so many healthy products out there. Let's just throw it all in. Let's just make a product that people don't really care if it's healthy or not. It just tastes absolutely great, and no animals were harmed in the making of this ice cream. But I thought it was pretty cool and unique, where the traceability of milk is actually quite a big issue in the food industry, and because they know these cows where they come from and where they're giving it at their own free will, I think that's great.
All right, well, I'll have to check out Better With Ice Cream. Because that sounds delicious, and even better to know that it has a social mission too. Today on the program, we're going to speak with Lindsay Riddell of Luminet Solutions. They are in the telecommunications, phone business, phone systems, so we'll talk about that. Plus marketing later on in the program with Natalie Riviere of Cometa Marketing. That's all on the way on today's Entrepreneur this evening.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar and FL's Josh Miller with you for today's Entrepreneur. And this evening we welcome into studio Lindsay Riddell of Luminet Solutions. Lindsay, welcome to CJD.
Thanks very much. Thank you for having me.
And Luminet is a digital telephony company, phone systems. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
I founded the company 15 years ago, so we specialize in installing and maintaining business telephone system solutions for Quebec-based businesses. We help those that have a few users up to several thousand. And as well, we get involved in all of the peripheral activities. So in order for a company to have a phone system that's fully functioning, it has to be wired together. So we look after the wired networks, both for computers and phones. And we work with the telephone companies to ensure that connectivity to the outside world is in place. We support it all and provide the full support and maintenance.
Did you have a background in this when you first started?
I'm a relative old timer to the point where Alexander Graham Bell was in the next cubicle back in the day next to me. So I started in the business.
It's radio, nobody can tell. It's all good.
Wonderful. I started back in the mid '80s. And so I spent 15 years with a company working in sales and learning the industry. And of course, the industry, the way it is today as compared to the way it was when I began is completely different. You could not recognize it if you were to step back and take a look at it. Life was a lot simpler, but it's a lot more exciting today. And what we're able to do is wonderful. And so I spent 15 years in the business working for a company before launching Luminet in 2001. So I'm a 30-year veteran at this juncture.
There's no question that technology has changed absolutely drastically over the many years, and probably no more than the last few years with certainly all the cloud-based. I mean, how did you keep up with, did technology really stay constant over many years, and then almost overnight it changed?
There's been the speed in which the evolution has been taking place has increased dramatically in the last 5 years. When we went on for years and years selling basic telephone system solutions, and then voicemail was introduced. When voicemail was introduced, it was a big deal. It took a long time to catch on. But today we're talking about doing away with voicemail and applications that allow companies to connect their telephone to their CRM in order to quickly call customers and have a pop screen application for incoming calls, queue calls for help desks and sales desks, obtain analytics on that call center, record incoming calls. It's been tremendous. And
so it requires a ton of training. I mean, you basically have to, I don't want to know if you have to start from scratch your training, but this is a whole new skill set.
So it's at different levels. The legacy products require finesse training. So credentials have to be updated on a regular basis. New applications require new training. And our cloud-based solution that we branded Dimension 10, which we launched in 2016, that's a whole new suite of training requirements, because the legacy telephone system switch that was once installed within the company's offices is now removed and is installed in a data center. So it's more of a programming language requirement, and the requirement to have the smarts in IT and to be able to install the networks required to manage all of that stuff within the company's offices is the challenge today.
Now, Dan, we've heard a lot of people reinvent themselves and a lot of technology changes. There's no question that training is a huge part of it. I mean, certainly the government of Quebec forces training on you because they want you to spend a certain amount, certain depending on your salary level. But the amount of training so that you stay on top of it so that your customers can really know that you have that knowledge base really requires that your team, your human resources is really up to par. And I know that that's a hugely important aspect. But not only that, when you first started out, 15 years ago, that must have been really kind of an interesting time back then, starting out on your own after working somewhere, and I guess kind of pounding the pavement from that day one. So when we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit about those early years and starting out your own company.
More with Lindsay Riddell of Luminet Solutions on today's Entrepreneur this evening, just after this break.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur. We're joined this evening by Lindsay Riddell of Luminet Solutions, a telephony company. They do telephone systems. And the interesting thing, Josh, about this particular business is that, Lindsay has been in this business as it has been completely transformed from landlines to now telephone over the internet. And how does an entrepreneur adapt? It must be so difficult when the foundation of your industry shifts so drastically.
And especially entrepreneurs, we're really talking about Luminet's client base. The entrepreneurs, the businesses want that cost-effective solution. They hear, things like VoIP. They hear, the technology and it can improve and I'll do things over the internet so I don't have these crazy charges. But there's got to be an education process. There's got to be the client. I don't know how much time, Lindsay, that you or your team spend just educating your customers on what they don't know, what they think they might know, but what they don't know.
Fully half the process has to do with education, especially when you talk about the word VoIP. Voice over IP is something that everybody the term is known by just about everybody, but what it actually means and what it means to business is completely different. So fully 50% of our time is educating people on what that actually means and what the true benefits are to their organization, because it's not always as clear cut as that.
So then we come back to, that human resource aspect, and making sure that your team understands that and delivers that right message. Like you want to be consistent. How many people are you in your?
We're a team of 15.
So the 15, so you're small enough, it's the right culture. You've been able to maintain but people want to send the same message or similar way. How do you get that to happen? How do you kind of train your people to make sure they're all delivering the right message? And how much do you have to stay on top of that?
And the challenge is that from within, there's a cultural shift in the sense that it's a shifting paradigm in the sense that we're going from a traditional legacy manner in which we deliver our services to a cloud-based solution. And it's fundamentally different. And the issue is change. The issue is change from within our organization as well, because not only do we have to educate ourselves, but we also have to deal with the vision that is different and the difficulty that change has on people. It's not a simple thing. If somebody's been in the business for 30 years and you're telling, well, the way you used to do it, we're going to change that a little bit, and this is how we're going to do it going forward, that isn't always easy to take, because I'm going to come back to you and say, I've just spent 30 years and now you're telling me I've got to shift gears and do it this way. So it's a challenge internally just to get our minds around what's taking place.
And you really have to have an open mind. You have to know you have to reinvent yourself. The team that you have around you, the 15, is that a build-up over your 15 years, or have a lot of them been around with you for a while?
Yes, we have a very loyal team. Generally speaking, on average, we probably have about 10 years of seniority within the organization and within the industry, from a few years to 35 years. And I'm not the 35. So we've got a pretty wide range of experience.
So you didn't really know Alex Graham Bell?
No, unfortunately, I did not.
Excellent. So when you're kind of training your people or dealing with them, and there's this huge shift, as you said, the paradigm, are you always forefront? Are you passing along? Do you have like a team leader? How do they stay on top of it? Or do you really tell them you gotta read every day? You gotta really, because with this shift and change of information that's happening at that speed, how do you stay on top of it?
A lot of it comes from the top, but also we have key players within the team that are from the new world of communication. So it's a team effort from within the team. So the message is being propagated both at my level and with team members that have that particular experience. And slowly the change is being viewed by those that haven't necessarily come through that. So they're starting to come online based on what real life experience is handing them.
And there's no question that with this whole change of technology comes probably a pretty big investment. So when we come back from the break, we'll chat a little bit about getting into a brand new investment 15 years into the existence of your company.
And we'll talk about marketing later in the program with Natalie Riviere of Cometa Marketing and turning your business into one that is more digital and to help your clients do that as well. So that's on the way.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, presented by FL Fuller Landau, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with FL's Josh Miller. And Josh, this evening, we're chatting with Lindsay Riddell of Luminet Solutions. They do telephony, so internet or VoIP, voice over internet protocol, right? I think.
That's
Lindsay?
it.
Yeah,
What it is.
I got it. Okay, and phone systems in general. Interesting because there's been a huge technological shift, and Lindsay has had to adapt to that. And certainly, we'll talk about the marketing challenges a little bit later, but there are plenty of in-house challenges as well.
No question. And as most entrepreneurs know, when you're really changing your business, you're reinventing, and you're going to a whole new suite of services and products, there's usually quite an investment that goes into it. No question, a human resource investment, a time investment, but then there's a dollar investment. And I'm sure, Lindsay, in this whole shifting to cloud-based, there has to be some type of equipment investment that you have to get into. Maybe you can chat about that a little bit.
Sure. Because of the change, we're maintaining a legacy. We have almost 1,000 clients, so we're maintaining our legacy systems with the team that's been in place for many years. In making this shift, we're creating a brand new team. So a new team means new people. We're bringing in people that are going to manage that division of the company. We're investing in all of the infrastructure and the technology required to support it. So all of that is in addition to the current cost structure that the company had in place for many years.
And you had some experience going with the bank. I mean, it does take some dollar investment and using the banks. How has been your experience in dealing with the banks and kind of giving the dog and pony show, and this is what we want to do next because this is where we have to be?
Fortunately, over the years, we haven't had to rely a whole lot on the bank except for an operating line of credit that, for the most part, we've been lucky enough not to have to dive into too much. So this new iteration of the business has required us to seek out the financing required to support it, and it's been quite favorable, both with our bank and in our early discussions with the BDC. I think there's place for financing for small businesses. And thus far it hasn't been a painful experience, I must say.
Did you have to write a whole business plan for this?
Surprisingly not. I think the fact that we've been in business for 15 years and we've got the experience and the existing business to go on made that task a little bit easier than it might have been otherwise if it had been a greenfield situation without any clients and starting up from scratch without anything to bank on.
Now you've been talking about the legacy clients, legacy business. I guess it's that, call it older technology. I don't even know.
Traditional technology.
Traditional technology, we'll call it that. We don't like to use old in this room. Traditional technology. And you must have, over years, developed certain strategic partnerships. You didn't create your own phones. You were using other people's phones and systems, or you were representing other companies. How important was that? Maybe you can give a little bit story of where that came from and the importance of choosing those strategic product lines.
So when I started this company, I had been, like I mentioned, in the business for quite a number of years, and I kind of knew the landscape. And there was one large manufacturer called NEC, otherwise known as NEC, and they're a large Japanese conglomerate. And we decided to partner with them back in 2002 because their reputation was stellar in the marketplace. Their products were known to be robust, and I felt it was a good move to make. There was room for us within their family in this market.
Were they popular back then? Like, did people know them? It wasn't.
They're on the branding end. They're pretty weak. They're very strong in the areas of engineering. Their products are incredibly reliable. We have solutions installed in healthcare facilities that support thousands of users. But from a marketing point of view, they were not known. So there's a story to tell for us whenever we meet a client and we're proposing those products. We probably spend a quarter of our time educating them on who NEC is, that they're a $30 billion company with 100 production plants throughout the world, and spend billions of dollars in R&D. So that has, the marketing end has been a challenge, but what we deliver to our clients has been very pleasant, and our dealings with the manufacturer directly without any third-party companies required for distribution and so on has been a plus.
Given that the pace of the new technology is becoming so fast, do you find yourself with a lot more competitors now than you did maybe 10, 20 years ago?
Definitely. The competition has come out of the woodwork. It was in the past where you could count on one hand who the competitors were, and you were used to seeing them, and you knew who the reps were that were pushing the other products. Today, competition comes from every single corner of the market. So IT companies that have taken on telephony, large American companies that are selling VoIP over the internet and shipping phones by FedEx, and companies plug them in. It's completely wide open. It's like the wild, wild west when it comes to, especially when it comes to VoIP. It's the wild, wild west. No question about it.
Now, you must also be dealing at some point with the Bell, the Rogers, the Teleses of the world, dealing, that you're a small company, you're an entrepreneur dealing with these huge conglomerates. Okay, there's the NEC, that's your supplier. But then when you're dealing with other services and these big monsters, what's been your experience with that?
Well, interestingly enough, we've had a partnership with TELUS for their wireline services, so telephone services and internet and fiber optics now for 15 years, actually. So we have a relatively intimate relationship at that level. But on the other hand, that whole world is really unlike what it is that we're living through today. And even the large telephone companies are having to change and shift the way that they do business in order to compete in the modern era.
Now, we'll shift gears a little bit to marketing. We'll get to, after the break with Natalie, and a little bit more on the digital and changing from past to current, certainly with the technology and online today. When you first started out 15 years ago and you were on your own and you were, yes, you were in the business for the previous 15 years, but you still had to go out and get that new customer base. What was your pounding the pavement like? What was working for you back then, or what did you learn? What would work?
What worked for me back then, which is what worked for me throughout the initial parts of my career also, was really I started the company renting a small office from a friend who owns an insurance brokerage firm, and I had a laptop computer, a printer, and a phone and a notepad. And essentially, I made calls and I reached out to contacts, and I pounded the pavement until my book of business was where it needed to be. And it was
cold calling. You did cold calling.
Cold calling, and frankly, when you need to feed a family, you do what you have to do. And
did you ever reach a point where you almost gave up?
No, I'm not the give up type. And frankly, I enjoy the whole aspect of business development and meeting new people and reaching out and making connections. So it's been, for me, a positive part of of my career, actually.
That one scene that you just painted, you're in a room in a new office alone, your laptop, notepad, and a telephone. What's going through your mind in those early goings of the business, and what advice would you give to people who are in that same situation and who just need to get on the phone and start selling?
Well, I one of the key things for me is to get up every day with a high level of energy, positivity, eager to get to work. You're anxious to dive into the day, and not to worry about what happened yesterday, and to always see the positive side to things. Even if something doesn't go well, usually if a door closes, another door opens. And for me, I look at every new day as a chapter, and I approach it with a lot of enthusiasm, and that's really what sustained my early day, and what sustains the difficulties that an entrepreneur deals with at any point.
Did you give yourself certain targets that you wanted to hit on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis?
Well, my business plans essentially dictated that I had to get somewhere. So on a 12-month plan, I said my objective is to grow the company to this level of sales. My goal is to be proficient with this product. My goal is to, so it was revenue based. It was the number of clients that I was taking on, and the relationships that I was building. So those were milestones that I was building into my business plan and seeking to attain. And thankfully, over the years, I've been able to do that.
And today, marketing, what does it look like today?
Marketing today is
for you.
Is for me a lot. We're making a fundamental shift, because where I was pounding the pavement, we had people that were actually doing that for us by picking up the phone and making phone calls and looking for business. And we started to see that was becoming more and more difficult. So we've had to kind of shift. And we're in the midst of, even though we've been online for many years and we've been doing search engine optimization, we're now going through a shift where we're going to have to work on going from a company that is pushing for business to one that is pulling in the business. And that's where the focus is going to be for my company going forward.
Outbound versus inbound marketing.
Exactly.
That's what a great segue, Dan.
And that's what we'll talk about next with our marketing expert, Natalie Riviere of Cometa Marketing. Lindsay Riddell of Luminet Solutions, our guest this evening on Today's Entrepreneur.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar and FL's Josh Miller with you. And this evening, our guests are Lindsay Riddell of Luminet Solutions. We'll have his one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur in just a few minutes on the program. But first, let's talk about marketing with Natalie Riviere of Cometa Marketing. Welcome back to the show, Natalie.
Thank you so much.
And we'll start with making that big shift towards digital and how to adapt to a new marketing strategy.
There's no question. I mean, as we just heard Lindsay talk, it's not just a shift in his own business, but certainly marketing, where it went from cold calls and pounding the pavement now to really attracting, and going out to search. Now, how do you attract them in? How do you get the most bang for the buck? And using the online services. And Natalie, you're the expert. So shoot, what comes to mind first, second, third, fourth?
Well, I love what you said about transitioning from push to pull strategy. So outbound marketing, when you're really making those calls, using those more direct methods to put in a lot of effort on trying to find them, versus now leveraging the tools that help them find you. People are searching differently, as you mentioned. People are shopping differently, different ages of customers. So leveraging online tools for that is definitely a different way to look at it.
Now, we talk about outbound marketing, inbound. What's the difference? Maybe you can kind of clarify that a little bit.
Inbound being wanting to optimize the tools where people can find you so that they come inward and you pull them inward towards your owned marketing materials, which is your website. So you own your website, you own your contact list, your newsletter list. Those are the two tools that have the most value for you as a business and represent the visibility that you gain and that your brand is worth online. And so you want to use search engine optimization, social media, and even like event promotion or all the different things that you can do, the media in general, publicity, to pull people inward towards your website to get more information.
And how do you educate them? You try and give them a link to say, here's something you should know, but then kind of learn more and click on to find out elsewhere. Like, are there little kind of tips and tricks that you would kind of lead people to do that?
100%. Well, I like where you're going with that, because the way that search engines work, they value updates. So you need a website that's relevant. They value the words that you put on there. They value the traffic that comes and the time that people spend. Images, content is really king online. So the more that you put into your own website, and then from your website share those links on social media, for example, and have the people in social need to follow that link to consume the content on your site, the better it is for you, versus you spending your time and effort adding those words, adding those images, adding those links to social media and making their businesses more valuable.
a lot of people talk about using AdWords to try and, get that recognition, get those people to, what exactly is that? And do you see that people still using that trend? Do you see them getting away and really dealing with this SEO, this search engine optimization, more so just because it's maybe not, I don't know, it's less costly from a dollar standpoint, maybe more from a human investment time standpoint.
Right. Well, I think they're both still pretty relevant. What I like to remind people is that even in search engine marketing, which is where you'd use AdWords, it's a different term. It's marketing because it's essentially advertising still, but on the online platforms. Whereas search engine optimization is applying the techniques that keep you in those organic search results. And we were discussing off air how most people, it's obvious when it's a paid ad, and not everyone clicks in those sections because they know that it's paid for, and the trust and credibility is a little different in that sense. But if you are under the pressure of time, it might be a really great way to get found quickly if you have to. Either way, AdWords considers your organic search rank in whether your ad is going to beat out the competitors or not. And so regardless, search engine optimization is super important. And for me, that's where I really encourage people to focus. And then if your budget allows and if your strategies want to go into AdWords, it's another way to drive traffic to your website, like a social media or advertising anywhere else.
Content is king, and we hear it all the time, and it's not always the easiest thing to get people to write or put relevant information online. If a company doesn't have that bandwidth to start writing itself and doing, I know they can engage people to write for them, but is there an easier way? Can they maybe search for articles in their industry, maybe help kind of retweet or share certain aspects that are kind of on that education side that they haven't written themselves, but they support? Is that something that
Absolutely. I think you have the opportunity online now to be the expert, and that might just mean that you're curating other people's content to get the best or the most relevant for your segment and putting that out there. And so whether you're just doing your own research, and what I find is that people in their operations are usually taking steps and creating content without knowing it. So whether it's a press release that you're writing off in, or a new feature or an update on a function in your product, you're creating content all the time. It might even be sales tools that could be put on the website in the back end. And so your salespeople are going on the website and creating that traffic and those views and the updates that keeps you relevant to search engines. So often there's a lot you can look at in your current operations that you're probably already doing. Otherwise, most people are following the news in their own practice. The news that you follow, you can then add your opinion on, take some quotes and excerpts from that article and refer to that article from your website. That link will be of great value for you, and you'll be seen as that expert who I trust to go and search the news for what's relevant so I don't have to.
And then, so you won't have that fear of missing out on everything. You won't have that FOMO that that people are getting all worried about.
Is that an F word?
More on marketing, and we'll have Lindsay Riddell's one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur next.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult FL Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's entrepreneur, presented by FL Fuller Landau. We'll have Lindsay Riddell's one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur that's on the way. But first, chatting with Natalie Riviere, a marketing expert with Cometa Marketing, and Cometa and FL. And P-Visio, putting together another fun night in Montreal, F-Up Nights, and that's happening actually on Wednesday.
Wednesday night, Le Salon, 1861. There's so many times where we share a lot of success stories on air, Dan. These are not success stories. These are failure stories. These are foul-up stories. These are fun stories, F-Up Nights. So Wednesday night, 6 o'clock, Le Salon. We're going to have some great guests. So, we have Michael Eskenazi from Felix Norton, who's been on the radio before. And we have
the entrepreneur behind Selgra, the restaurant that had some difficulties at the very beginning. And we have Andrew Murray from Spotful, which is a brilliant startup out of Montreal with great success.
Now, so great. Please join us Wednesday night, Le Salon.
Fun nights.
Exactly.
Facebook.com/Fun Montreal if you want to check it out.
Now, just before we get to Lindsay's one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur, or maybe two, measuring what you put in. Analytics is huge, and I know this is probably something you could talk about for 30 minutes at least, if not hours on end. But quickly from, it's great to talk about putting stuff online, but how best to manage what you're doing on your online platforms.
Right. Why are you doing it? And I love online marketing for many reasons, but one of my favorites is that we can finally actually prove the value of marketing. Many people say we don't know what marketing is worth or how to put a dollar on it, but with online marketing, you can really get to the whys. You can look at literally the demand and make demand-informed decisions. And you can really look at the ROI on your efforts. What is the return on the investment I'm making by putting in these efforts? So there's lots to look at. There's Google Analytics that are a free tool that you can build into your website. And that'll tell you a lot about your users. This is the most relevant. When you get into email marketing, you can actually see who opened them. And now you're bringing marketing closer to a sales conversation. You're able to see what leads are actually coming from this. That's the most intimate way to keep up professional relationships is through email. And it's on your website that you can grab their emails. So again, those are the most important tools, I'd say. But then social media does give you insights or stats. They have different terms for all their different analytics that they provide. And so all of those tools have a lot of very, very interesting things to discover.
It's out there. So don't forget, use it. So there's no question. There's a lot of information out there, but you got to go and you got to get it. You can't just don't just go out there and shoot from the hip and not analyze it afterwards. Thanks very much, Natalie.
It's my pleasure.
As we come to the last moment of the show, as we do every show, Dan, and for the first one of 2017, we'll look to Lindsay and ask you, Lindsay from Luminet Solutions, what would be your piece of advice for today's entrepreneur?
So I talked earlier about waking up every day and attacking the day, so that was probably top of mind for me. Staying connected within your industry, always be on the cutting edge and ahead of the curve, because you want to be your client's trusted advisor. That's a key aspect. And as much as possible, get out of your comfort zone, and by all means, pick up the phone and call your customers.
Never underestimate the use of a phone still.
For sure.
Spoken from a true telephony expert. Thanks very much, Lindsay. Dan, my very quick takeaway is I don't think entrepreneurs understand how much they are charged with educating their customers and educating the public and the people that are going to ultimately use or buy their product or service. And I think you can never underestimate that. Always be in top of mind, educate them, learn, let them know that you're the expert. They can come to you for answers.
Thanks to our guest tonight, Lindsay Riddell of Luminet Solutions. Thanks so much, Lindsay.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, and Natalie.
And to Natalie Riviere of Cometa Marketing. Thanks, Natalie. We'll see you soon. And Josh, next week on the program, Lebanese cuisine with the folks behind Azar.
I'm hungry already.
Today's Entrepreneur, Monday nights, 7 p.m. on CJAD. Listen to past episodes at www.flmontreal.com. Have a good night.